or at least preparing to live stream the meeting. Oh goodness, it actually goes, okay, right, that goes live fairly quickly. Brilliant. Love that. Right, let's tweet, because that's a thing we do now. Do you know there's people who like you can hire to do all your social media for you if you're like a big celebrity? And I want one of them.
Yeah, that's your goal once you get out of school. Go and get somebody to work your social media, man. I'm not that lucky. I wish I was.
No, I just heard about... Oh, no, carry on. I was good.
To go post my shows and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Because like, I've heard celebrities do it, like when they're at like events or parties. They have like a full social media team.
Well, it's just easier when everybody else is doing everything for you.
Yeah. You know what? I think it'll be fine. Awesome. So, is everyone good to go?
Just give me. Let me just give me a second here. Sorry.
That's all right. No worries. Bless you.
Thank you. Oh, I muted my microphone, but it didn't mute me on the actual Zoom meeting.
Oh yeah. No, I see. The thing is, I've got like a mic mute button on here, and I always like when I'm in a Zoom call or whatever. I always do it the wrong way around, like, and I just mute the wrong thing or unmute when I'm meant to be muting, and it's just basically I just sneeze down the mic to someone.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
It's all right. Honestly, I wouldn't worry.
Trying not to.
Right. Okay. Okay, I've done the tweet. I'm sure it'll be fine. Make sure I record. Here we go. Recording to the cloud, so everyone's good to go.
Yep.
All right, let's get started. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes execute a deja vu-esque strategy imitating their incredible win in Hungary 2019 that once again had Red Bull on the back foot. Welcome back to the Grid Talk podcast. Today we'll be giving our analysis and reaction to the 2021 Formula One Spanish Grand Prix. Hosting today will be me, Owain Medford, and joining me are F1 writer and host of the Grip Strip podcast, Philip Mathew.
Hello.
Spencer, co-host of the Soft Tyre Podcast.
Hello, thanks for having me.
And Formula Shakedown's Henrico Marks.
Hi there.
We're now streaming the show live on YouTube, so be sure to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Formula One Grid Talk, and also ring the bell icon so that you're notified of future shows. So obviously it's been an amazing day for Lewis Hamilton. It doesn't really tell the full story though to look at the grid and then the finish order though, really, because obviously Lewis got overtaken at the start by Max Verstappen, Philip, and it kind of looks like they might hold them off. Obviously, it was quite tense, but Mercedes just pulled a blinder on the strategy, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, Lewis got taken on the start, as you said, Owain. I mean, it wasn't his best start, but it was good. Problem was Max was better. Lewis saw there was a little bit more grip on the offside there, probably because of F3 and whatever else has been going on at the circuit. But in turn, Lewis was able to make pace during that first segment on the soft tires, and that was a precursor of things to come. Also, Valtteri, after not being able to make a great start, he got blocked also by Lewis, made the initial pit stop, which in turn made Max pit, and they had a slow pit stop. That kind of turned the tide at that point. Lewis was making pace. He was getting up there, and he might have been able to pass. We don't know. Probably wasn't at that point. But at that point, that was when the tide shifted and gave them the opportunity, once they were catching Max on the medium tires, to go and possibly get into a position to go and get him. And then they went and made the strategy call, which changed the day. And Lewis just went off, was setting qualifying times in 1.5, 1.8, 1.9 seconds, a clip, minus Egghead being in the way. I mean, everybody else, he was just going off, and Max knew he was in trouble. And basically, and outside of Valtteri, which we'll probably talk about later, but not really ceding that position, Lewis Hamilton won. Sir Lewis Hamilton winning his 98th race after winning his 100th pole this week. It's one of his best performances, if it's possible for a guy to keep on getting better. But that was one of his best performances, and he had a look on his face like he wanted to keep on racing for like the next 24 hours. And then Max Verstappen looked like he just wanted to go home and go to sleep. So it tells you it's kind of like the demoralizing race that possibly might have been the first nail in the coffin at 4 races in, that Red Bull is in trouble. I think Monaco might turn it back in their favor a little bit, but that was a performance that will be very hard to answer for Red Bull as we keep on going into this 2021 season. And hats off to Lewis and the whole entire crew, Bono, and the whole strategy and everything in Mercedes, because that was a masterclass in handling a Formula One Grand Prix.
Yeah, like you say, they did a really great job of it. A job that we've come to expect. It did seem, however, on the just a little bit further down the pit wall, Spencer, that Red Bull just kind of couldn't get it together. Obviously, they pushed Mercedes hard in qualifying, but just as Philip said, the sort of issue at the pit stop where normally they're so good, and just the. After a certain point, they just seemed unable to maybe answer the Mercedes, where they were getting on form.
Yeah, I agree, because I mean, on your point about the pit stops, Verstappen had a 4-second pit stop, which is it's a long one compared to what they usually to the standard that they've set themselves to. So I think that they were obviously a lot was a bit off today. They weren't able to answer Mercedes' strategy in time, because I think they were completely blindsided pretty much by just how little they were prepared for what Mercedes was about to do. I mean, even as like Crofty was saying, like they had no idea. But I think overall, I mean, Verstappen had a pretty good race. All things considered, I mean, he was able to continue on those dying tires as long as he could. But I mean, there was really no point in keeping him out that long because eventually he was just going to give up the position. They might as well put him onto the softs a little bit earlier and maybe see if he could catch up to Hamilton a little bit faster. But I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it did seem like there was sort of an issue for Red Bull in that they sometimes are so good at strategy, but it seems to be few and far between because it's almost like they get caught in that sort of we're leading from the front, so it'll be fine kind of way, and it's what allows Mercedes, who, to be honest, didn't look like they were going to be able to pull off the sort of pincer movement of cars that you need to make a strategy like this work. Henrico, but Valtteri Bottas, to be fair, with the help of, I think, some Mercedes strategy when he didn't have ultimate pace, which is maybe becoming his a bit of a weakness for him, really helped sort of Valtteri execute a good strategy for Mercedes and get a good result.
Definitely. I think what kind of screwed it for Red Bull here was Bottas, where he sat, because I'm pretty sure that they would have been able to get the tires out, get Max in on the next lap after Lewis pitted. That wouldn't have been an issue. And I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't have a slow stop, twice in a row. But I think the issue was Bottas was only 10 seconds behind, and Red Bull seems to be erring on the side of caution these days. They're not keen to kind of pull the trigger on a risky strategy. And that was their downfall today. I think had they done it, Max may have actually won the race because he had flashes of brilliance where, I mean, the restarts, nobody would have caught him. Lewis wouldn't have caught him. If he had the tires and if he had the, ability to push throughout the entire race, which is what Lewis effectively had, I don't think he would have lost. I think he would have probably overtaken Bottas. But to make that call, it's safer to say, let's conserve our tires. We've got a 25-second gap. We should be safe. And the other problem that Red Bull has at the moment is they don't have that second car yet to hold Bottas off. They don't have Perez in there where they want him yet. He's getting closer. He's considerably closer than where Albon was, but he's not quite there yet. And they're not able to launch that two-pronged attack against Mercedes that they would like to do.
Yeah, Sergio Perez, again, having a weird sort of, maybe affected a little bit by illness qualifying and, doing fairly well in the race with the 5th place, but we will get on to him. But just, yeah, as you say, not able to kind of push the Mercedes and really sort of match them in terms of numbers, and Mercedes has that numbers advantage. Just sort of splitting the what should be the top 4 runners what should be the top 4 runners and the rest of the field, however, is Charles Leclerc just sitting in 4th place there, which is a really fairly decent performance. I mean, it was decent enough in qualifying, and he's pulled a 4th place, Philip.
Yeah, Charles Leclerc continues to do Charles Leclerc things, taking a car that is definitely not great and putting it up in a place where it probably wouldn't be with most other drivers. I think the stabilizing force of having Carlos Sainz in there, and they're kind of all in one unified front this year, better power unit. They've been able to kind of work on the aero deficiencies they had last year as well. Got a good start, beat Bottas there in the third on turn 3 and held him back, which kind of affected the race, which in turn helped the final result at the front. But it showed that Charles Leclerc, if you give him something to work with one of these days, like he had a couple years ago, he will be up there again. He's one of those guys. He's right there as a championship level driver. And I mean, the fact of the matter is today it was a solid, strong performance. These last couple of races have seen Ferrari kind of take the fight back to McLaren, and now McLaren's starting to fall back. While Ricciardo, we'll talk about in a moment, was able to make a move forward. I think Ferrari and McLaren now are going to have a very strong battle between the two teams the rest of this season to see who's going to be in third place. And from there, I mean, Charles Leclerc is going to continue to do this if given the opportunity. He'll qualify well. He'll give you the most he can, and he's going to get the most points he can get. So quality performance, not surprising. It's what he is, and I'm waiting. Hopefully, it'll probably be next year, but hopefully he'll be back in that battle with Lewis and Max and some of these other guys, and we could have a real banger of a season in 22. But for this season and what it is, his battle is with McLaren and whatever insert other midfield teams that decide to show up that particular weekend. And the fourth place finish is great overall for the Scuderia.
Yeah, it's a sort of an excellent result. As we alluded to earlier, Sergio Perez in fifth place. He's getting there. It's not sort of, it's obviously, a couple of places up on the seventh he qualified in, I believe. But it's, and let's not forget he did. I will say I just want to make mention of the fact that he did an amazing move around the outside of Daniel Ricciardo, which including the tyres might have helped him out. He just needs to be that bit closer, doesn't he, Spencer?
Yeah, I think Perez is kind of at a stage right now where he's getting comfortable with the car that he's in. Because I mean, obviously he was at a Racing Point last year, and he made his move over to a Honda car, which is quite different. Because it's quite different, and so he's got to get himself comfortable. So right now, it kind of feels like, other than like his good moves, and even at Portugal last week when he kept his tires for like 54 laps, like he just kind of flies under the radar. Like unless he's doing something crazy, like he's really only coming like fifth place, seventh place, which aren't incredible. It's not where Red Bull wants him to be, but I feel like once he gets comfortable in his car, he'll be able to even like make their two-prong attack, like you guys were saying. Like he will be a good driver with Red Bull. It's just time will only tell.
Yeah, exactly. I think, obviously there's going to be an adjustment period, and we are only 4 races in. Let's not forget that, but specifically with a reduced amount of testing. So I don't think it's expected that he'd be up to speed immediately. But he's got the experience, and I think once he really sort of starts clicking, the Red Bull will have a lot better chance. Next down the road was Daniel Ricciardo, Henrico, and it's. He kind of got shown up a little bit, but it's still a pretty good result for a McLaren Mercedes that didn't look so great sort of throughout the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, well, I was actually very impressed with Ricciardo's performance today. I don't know if that was more to do with Norris not performing, at what we expect, but credit where it's due. Ricciardo raced a really good race. I mean, how long did he hold up Perez, who was in an arguably much faster car? As soon as Perez cleared him, he just built a massive gap. 10 seconds apart, and Ricciardo did a very, very good job holding him off. So that was extremely well done. I think he's coming into his own with that car. I think it's a massive change. I mean, in the last 4 years, he's been in 3 different constructors' cars. That level of adaptability is impressive, to say the least. I think he's going to start performing much better. He's historically been very good at Monaco, so I'm curious to see how that turns out. That McLaren is quite racy, but yeah, I expect some interesting things from Ricciardo. He did well today. I think he could be very proud of that result.
Yeah. After that, we have Carlos Sainz, who obviously new into the team, and he's had a fair amount of testing, but he got a 7th place, which is much better than can be said for the previous Ferrari driver in that seat, Philip.
Yeah, Carlos Sainz, as I mentioned with Leclerc, he's getting used to the team. People questioned if this was the right move for him. The grand scheme, I don't know if we're really going to know this year. What I do know is that him having Carlos Sainz in this team instead of Vettel and his moodiness, at least you have with Carlos Sainz, a stabilizing guy. He's not going to push any, make any waves in any way. He's not going to be controversial. He's just going to do his thing, and he's very calm, cool, collected guy, stable, going to give you a solid race, and he's going to get you points. and that's what they need in this Constructors' Championship. And he's going to compete for top 10 in points too. And a solid race at home for him. Probably wants more to one day possibly win his home Grand Prix, but that's not in the cards at least this year. But to get a 7th place and to go and back up the number one at Ferrari and Leclerc and gain points, double points for Ferrari is a good thing as they go to Monaco and then Turkey, which is in previous years was a Ferrari track.
Yeah. There's sort of a certain amount to be said for also. I've completely forgotten what I was going to say. It was going to be something good. I'll move swiftly on so I don't look so stupid. Is Lando Norris, who I take the point that he didn't do it so amazing, but I think he did pretty well, and it's an 8th place, which is obviously not as good as McLaren once spent. Spencer, but it's not the worst. It's not out of the points, which is kind of what McLaren need in this midfield battle currently.
Yeah, I mean he did qualify 9th place, which to me was surprising, all things considered. I mean, Imola podium like that, I don't know, but yeah, I was kind of disappointed, all things considered, because he should be a lot higher up. Because I mean, like Daniel Ricciardo, he's not too comfortable in the car yet. I mean, as Henrico was saying, he's been in like 3 different constructors, all of which were Renault, and now he's made his chance into a Mercedes car. So it's very, very different. And I think that Norris just was not performing like he was supposed to. And even at like 10th, when he was in 10th place, I mean, it was kind of surprising, especially, and I want to make this point now so that I don't forget about it. I had to pick between Norris or George to get points. It was a really heart-wrenching experience for me, but I feel like he could definitely do better at different tracks, and he should be doing better.
Yeah, obviously he got that podium at Imola, but Imola is quite a different track, and maybe McLaren don't know how to get the Mercedes sort of package to work well on a track that's more like more twisty and like Catalonia. Next we have the Alpines, which weirdly slow, to be honest. After qualifying, they did fairly decent in qualifying, but 9th place is best Esteban Ocon could get, isn't it, Henrico?
Yes, I'm actually quite impressed with the guy, to be honest. I did not think that Alpine was going to be in the points. I thought he was going to slip back. I honestly thought that they were going to end up below the Alfa Romeos. I think he's doing something special with that car, especially if you compare him to Alonso. Granted, Alonso has been out of a car for how long and everything, but there's a considerable gap between them. And Ocon's just consistently been performing, as far as I'm concerned, to the best of that car's abilities and even outperforming them. I think this is what I expected when I heard Ocon was coming back last year. I expected some of that magic of him in Force India outperforming the more experienced driver in Sergio Perez. And I think we're seeing him come into his own. And I'm excited to see what he can do if Alpine can give him a decent package. Because he's doing pretty well. I mean, he's very racy. He outperformed Pierre Gasly in an AlphaTauri that's supposed to be miles ahead of the Alpine. So I'm impressed. I think that was a good result.
That's a fair point you make. I hadn't considered it that way. Next, there's Pierre Gasly, who seemed to make a sort of an excellent recovery drive after not an amazing qualifying, and then getting a penalty for being out of his pit box. A bit too much. Max Verstappen literally towed the line fairly well.
Yeah, that was questionable.
Yeah, I was going to say it's questionable, to say the least. Probably just on the timing loop, whereas Pierre Gasly obviously didn't. It seems like the AlphaTauris have just sort of lost they just kind of not got the edge to them, Philip, that they had previously in the last couple of races.
Yeah, I think for AlphaTauri, they're very it's a hit or miss team. You have Yuki, we'll talk about later. He's very much in the likes of fellow Japanese driver, used to be in Formula One, Takuma Sato, where he's flashy, he's going to make big moves and all that, but then he's liable to have, a big off or have some other, DNF. In the case of Gasly, he's generally steady, but he's liable to make a mistake here and there. The mistake he made at the start of the race was something that could have ended his day, being that Catalonia is such a crappy track and you can't pass there. But the fact is he did, and he was able to score a point. Great recovery drive. It shows that the pace, they had good pace in the race, but didn't have it in qualifying, which especially there is going to give up a lot. And so, I mean, for what they went through as a team today, to get 1 point out of the deal is good. I think some of these other tracks like Turkey and some of the tracks that are coming up should suit them a little better, but it depends on it really is track dependent. It's the same way as with Alpine. It's the same way with McLaren, I think, at this point, really. Those three teams are all track dependent on which one's really going to stand out on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I think that's just probably, I think, as you say, they're track dependent. And for some of these teams, that's what makes the difference between the Red Bulls and the Mercedes of the world, and the sort of midfield and Formula 1.5 teams that we like to call them. Dropping out of the points, we then have Lance Stroll with the Aston Martin. Initially, I thought this was going to be we're going to sort of rag on them a bit more, but they, to be fair, looking at the results they actually got, they're not amazing, but they're really not as bad as they could have been, Spencer.
Yeah, you know what? I agree. I think that Aston Martin is exceeding what I thought that they'd perform as, considering they're a new team, even though they're not really like a new team. It's just Racing Point with a new name. But I mean, they didn't have Mercedes to copy off of this year, so they're able to. They had to figure it out for themselves, and I think that 11th and 13th pretty much sums up where I expected them to be. Lance Stroll, though, he had some highlights today, he had some controversy where he was making a pass and he went out of track limits, and he had to give back his place to Fernando Alonso, which was it was good that he caught that when he did. Obviously he let off the throttle, we saw that, but I think that 11th is pretty much where I expect him to be. That or just in the points is where I expect him to be, along with Vettel throughout the entire season, because the Aston Martin car just isn't. It's just not copy paste Mercedes from the previous year. Like you're not going to expect the same results from that.
Yeah, it's more than that to build a Formula One car, and when you're a little bit further away, that's from further away from being able to do that. It doesn't maybe necessarily work out so well. Next, we then have Kimi Räikkönen, who, if I remember correctly, didn't have the greatest race. I can't remember why; it just sticks in my mind. But obviously, he was the fastest of the Alfa Romeos, just due to the fact that he had decent pit stops and didn't have a sort of puncture before he even left the pit box. Henrico, do you think that Giovinazzi could have actually got ahead of him, or do you think that Räikkönen was the stronger of the two?
If you had asked me that a couple of months ago, I would have said Räikkönen all the way. But I don't know. Giovinazzi he's racing some good races lately. He's kind of proving himself. If Alfa Romeo actually leaves the sport, I don't know if he's going to retain his seat. But Räikkönen had a fairly uneventful race, as far as I could tell. Didn't get himself into too much trouble, which is great, especially considering last week. But if you consider out of the old hands in the trailing 10, he did arguably the best race. That's what the results show. I mean, 12th ahead of Vettel, ahead of Fernando Alonso, which brings me a bit of joy because that's what I predicted 2-3 races ago, that he's going to finish ahead of Alonso. I don't know in terms of points, but yeah, I think he's pretty consistent. He's Räikkönen. You can count on him most of the time to just get the job done, and I think that's what he did today.
Yeah, it's definitely weird to think of Raikkonen and Alonso and as sort of like old hat at this point. They've been in so long, and then obviously all came through at a similar time. After that, we have Sebastian Vettel, who kind of sort of a anonymous race really down into 13th. He should be in front of Stroll, shouldn't he, Philip?
I mean, it is Stroll F1, so the same stuff happened when Sergio Perez was there. But then you had Sergio Perez who was pushing. You wonder the motivation, and I think it was a question we've had for the last couple of years about Seb at times. I mean, what is the ultimate goal here? Is he trying to stick around so there's like a WEC program? Is he trying to go and, arrange whatever his next parts of his career will be post Formula One? I mean, what is he trying to do? I mean, performances like today and what he's had in general this year don't make. I mean, I know the fan base for Seb is strong and he's a great driver, 53 wins and the whole bit, 4 championships, but he's not that guy anymore. And he hasn't been that guy since Hockenheim 2018, and so, battling with Lance Stroll, which you would have never thought like 3-4 years ago, and struggling to pass him and be in the back around Alfa Romeos and stuff doesn't seem like a way to walk out of your career, but that's what it seems like it's going to be because they're not the best team by any stretch. They're on the back foot. They're going to struggle the rest of the season with not only just the development, but the way their car is. They just don't have pace, and it's a problem unless there's like a wet race or something comes into play, some other deal comes into play for them to really contend.
After that, we've got George Russell, who in 14th that's a really not a bad result in my opinion. And for a while, based on if the tyre drag had gone a bit more their way, Spencer, it could have been a points finish for Russell. Alas, it didn't happen, but that's pretty good to be honest for him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I as I mentioned earlier, he found himself in 10th place in front of Lando Norris, which I unfortunately knew wouldn't last because the McLaren obviously just has pace, speed, aerodynamics, well, pretty much everything on the Williams car. So obviously he wasn't going to last there, but it was a good finish for him. 14th is good. It's not back of the pack. It's no 18th, 19th, 20th. So I mean, I can't really complain. His race was good as well. Like I mean, he had a good race. He was finding himself in good positions. At one point, he even ended up in 7th place, which he then obviously fell back. But yeah, I think his race was good, and I think that if he continues, I think that he will probably find himself in the points at least one time this season. Like realistically, it's bound to happen eventually.
It's got to, yeah. Sort of law of probability, law of averages. It's got to happen. Just a wet race here or there might swing the balance. But he's getting closer and closer. After that, we have Antonio Giovinazzi. We said about it earlier, but his race was ruined sort of at the pit stop. I would say though, Henrico, it was probably the best of a bad bunch. To at least realize that there's a puncture on the tires that you're about to fit, and rather than send him out on those and wheeling back down the pit lane when you realize, send him out on a set that is filled with air, but just a massive delay.
Yeah, it could have gone a lot worse for him. Credit to that mechanic. That was quite something to pick up because I've never actually handled an F1 tire, but I don't imagine that it's terribly easy to tell whether one's inflated or not because they weigh the same whether they've got air in or not. So for picking that up, that's very well done because the alternative is they slap him on, he goes out, probably rips the tire off coming back, and then either another safety car, delayed safety car, he's out of the race, or he loses another 20 seconds getting another set of tires on top of all the time he would have lost on his outlap. So very good job. I mean, he lost he lost some time, but it could have been a ton worse. So 15th, if you consider the car he's driving, what happened in the pit stop, that's a decent result for him. I'd be happy with that. I'd be happy driving an F1 car, but I think he can be happy with that.
Yeah, it's one of those things of, it could be it could really be deemed an unsafe release if you let a car out with no air in its tires, and they did kind of get saved by the safety car happening at that time, I believe. So it wasn't the worst thing in the world. After that, we've got Nicholas Latifi, who sometimes doesn't look so great. Is usually a little bit further down the order, Philip, but it's not the worst result in the world to get where he is.
Yeah, for Latifi, there was times during the race, both Williams, both George and Nicholas Latifi were up there, and they were kind of around the points. I think the strategy they played early during the safety car period helped with that, but at least he held, compared to the last couple of years, he's showing a little bit of progress, and relative to a certain guy we'll talk about a little later, he actually looks like he belongs finally on the grid. They're not the best car, of course. They know what their goal is to basically be around the Alfa Romeos and to beat the Haas. I want to call it the other name, but the Haas. And the fact is, at least he's holding up his end of the bargain. They're not. It's not going to be about major results. Keep it clean. Get data. Figure out things for next year. He's going to be in the team next year. It's just a case of who his teammate's going to be, whether it's going to be George or it's going to be somebody else. So it's really about 22 for them. But for him to get through and to finish ahead of some of these other drivers that he should beat is a positive.
Yeah. Looking sort of the next in 17th place, which you can't look at a positive in any way, particularly with who's driving and who it is and the sort of budget that they've got. Alpine Renault with Fernando Alonso, really not good to get 17th place. You almost felt like they needed the cleanup of Yuki Tsunoda's AlphaTauri to take maybe about 3 or 4 laps longer, because that it just looked like he was just on the edge of maybe being able to make it to the end on those softs, and it just unfortunately didn't work out for them.
Yeah. I mean, Alonso, he wasn't ending up in the points no matter where you were looking at it, because at the end he had the 5-car DRS train that was it was inevitable doom for him. Like he was doomed from the start, and just so happened that world champion Fernando Alonso was not able to end up anywhere close to the points at the end there. I think that the budget has definitely kind of been wasted on him, because there definitely could have been another driver that they could have pulled in that could have been getting the same results that he's been getting. He's not ending up anywhere surprising, because I mean, like, Fernando Alonso, he's a great driver, don't get me wrong, but I mean, the car that he's in just it's not like what he was in before, which is Ferrari. Like he's not amazing. He's not exceeding anybody's expectations. He's doing much worse than that, for me at least. So I think that all in all, he had a decent race, a crappy finish, unfortunately. But I mean, I think that in the future we'll definitely see some highlights from him. But right now, it's just nothing too special.
Yeah, it seems that Alpine, much like Fernando Alonso, at the sort of closing stages of this race, looking more backwards than they should have been in front, and you kind of wonder why they didn't put GRAN in, and they could have got a year's worth of experience out of him. Next is then Mick Schumacher, who seemed to have a have a decent race, really sort of quite racy, was putting moves on people, and got up into some fairly high positions before the sort of pace of the car obviously settled what he was going to end up with, Henrico.
Yeah, he's been impressing me, if I'm honest. I know that he's got, he's a Schumacher, he's bound to impress, all that jazz, but barring that, he's, in my opinion, best rookie on the grid this year. He's doing really well. He's delivering more consistently than someone like Tsunoda, because he's keeping his head a bit more. And, well, obviously he's going to be better than his teammate. I could probably be better than his teammate. But he raced a good race, and he's actually, he is outperforming that Haas. It's holding him back massively, but he's actually able to race other drivers, race other cars in a car that's, I almost want to say, more than a year behind technology-wise. So very good result for him. I mean, he's only ever going to be 17th or 18th unless there's some cataclysmic event that changes the outcome of the race. But it's much like Russell was in his rookie year. He's never going to get further than what he's going to get, but put him in a decent car and he's going to show what his potential is. So yeah, good result for him.
Yeah, obviously Mick Schumacher throughout his career has been seen to sort of struggle in his first year in a new formula, and then get better. It's going to be amazing to look at how far he slingshots forward then, assuming the Haas is okay and he's still there next year, and he's actually driving it even better than he is now, which is already pretty good. The next car I don't want to talk about, but I have to, is car number 9. That one was about sort of 50 seconds off the pace, which I think says enough about 50 seconds off the back of already a slow but well-driven car. And that's a second per lap. Well, sorry, it's what, 3/4 of a second per lap, something like that. Average pace advantage that Mick had over that one. It's why is it? Well, actually, you know what? Also, sorry, I've not transitioned this well at all. But Phil, but it's the second time in 2 races that he's starting to affect the result by just being dozy behind the wheel.
Well, I said it yesterday when he got a ceremonial grid penalty, and then he got a penalty point on his license for Egghead. I said Egghead strikes again when he held up Lando in qualifying. And then yet again, Egghead struck again during the race, holding up Lewis during the first segment. And then I think he tried to hold up one of them, whether it was Lewis or Max or Valtteri, because he doesn't know what a mirror is. I think the fact is, Mick Schumacher, as Henrico was saying, Mick Schumacher's pulling stuff out of his behind to make that car do anything. And then on the flip side of that, Vladdy's son over there is just a complete waste of time. And I'm waiting for the day, and it might happen in 2 weeks' time at Monaco, where somebody's going to beat him up. Because he is going to alter and affect the race, because he literally is a moron. He goes back to the days of the 90s, the mid 90s, when they had the terrible drivers plus terrible car combination who just didn't pay attention whatsoever and would be in the way. He literally is the slowest guy. You can hear the difference in tone when Crofty and Martin go and talk about Egghead. They just kind of like their voice changes. So you could tell how much nobody likes him. Like, I've never seen that in my whole, like you know that in the old days when Murray Walker and James Hunt would say like James Hunt would say stuff about like Andrea the Crash Race, or that's the level that we're getting to, but they can't say it. He's god awful, and he needs to be parked. He's like Milka Duno was in IndyCar when they would go and park her after 10 laps because she was so slow. Like, that's literally the length that they're gonna have to go to probably at Monaco, because he's gonna be in the way. He's literally a moving chicane, and he is nope. And he's getting destroyed in the same car. It's not a good car. It's awful. It's literally a go-kart, and he's getting destroyed by nearly a lap by his own teammate per race. I don't think I've ever seen that before in Formula One. And so this is an epic performance weekly by him to go and alter the results or put himself in. You have to give him credit. He is consistent. He's consistently terrible, and he insists on inserting himself into battles where eventually he's going to end up getting his butt whipped by somebody. So it's just a case of who it'll be and when. And I think Monaco might be that time.
Yeah. The other Haas car, basically a waste of petrol. Currently. You know what? We'll move on. We'll end on a light note. It's unfortunate that the car just shut off on him. But Yuki Tsunoda, unfortunately, only made 1/6 of the laps. Sorry, not 1/6, 1/11. There we go. 1/11 of the laps in the race. Spencer, just, I mean, it's hard to say very much, so you know, don't feel the need to say too much about him. But it was kind of like, how do you think he did based on what he had?
Well, he was driving and then he wasn't. I mean, that's pretty much all there is to say. He didn't. There's no screw ups except for what happened with the car. It was a horrible turn of events for him. I wanted to see him do well because he has so much potential to do well in that car, in the AlphaTauri car. There's just been so many things that have just turned him around it's just so unfortunate to see. I feel bad for him.
Yeah, it's a difficult task he's got, particularly when your machinery fails on you. Hopefully, like, we can see some more of that sort of feisty, sort of I don't know really how to describe it in a way that's good, because I'm not eloquent, but just that amazing driving style at Monaco, where it should make a difference. I really look forward to that. I don't know about you guys. We've been down the grid, so if we move on to our drivers of the day, we'll start with you, Henrico. Who was your driver of the day?
As much as I'm a Verstappen fan, I've got to give it to Hamilton. There was an absolutely Class A drive, making up 24 seconds over as many laps. That's very impressive. I mean, yes, they had the better strategy. Yes, they have arguably a better car. But still, look at where he ended up versus where Bottas ended up. Damn good drive.
Yeah, you make an excellent point. Philip, who was yours?
Yeah, for me, it's Lewis. It's pretty straightforward. He did win driver of the day too. I figured Max was going to win it because he has all of the Danish fans going and putting the ballot box, stuff in the ballot box. But to do what he had to do there in that final stint and make up over 20 seconds on a track that's one of the worst tracks in Formula One that you can barely pass on, and to go and come back and pass Max Verstappen, who had made the better start, and they had initially taken the fight to them and were ahead. It's a demoralizing. You could just tell the look on Max's, his demeanor, his voice on the radio. That was a demoralizing performance. That was the first nail in the coffin if Red Bull wants to compete for this World Championship. Obviously, it's still very close. World Championship still close, 14 points, one DNF possibly, like a crash, something could happen, and then Max wins, and then you could be right back in it. But it's Lewis, number 98, and it was one of his best performances ever.
Yeah, absolutely excellent, and it's sort of, I think I was discussing it with some other people, but you're starting to see maybe that the pressure that a full championship battle does bring. Spencer, who was your driver of the day?
Yeah, so you guys both picked Lewis, which is understandable, but I think I'm gonna go with an unpopular opinion here. Nikita Mazepin's actually my driver of the day. Somehow, a man that finishes over a lap behind his teammate in the same car always manages to make a long-lasting impact on every race he's in. So I think that that my driver of the day goes to him.
You've convinced me.
Well done. Well done. That's true. Spencer's right about that. That is awesome.
He's got a long-lasting impact.
Egghead makes a long-lasting impact on every Formula One show that exists, because by talking about him, we give him relevance. So yes, he is the driver of the day.
Oh, he was presented by
Manscaped. He was a driver today, presented by the Manscaped or whatever, because he probably doesn't.
Philip's not wrong. We get a good 5 minutes out of him every day. It's great for a clip show. My driver of the day is going to be Pierre Gasly because, as I kind of said earlier, I think I think his ability to overtake on a track that doesn't really allow it, and the fact that he got a penalty, partially, well, it was his own fault, but he managed to recover that to a point. I think that's great. I think he's done well there. Right, so you'll know if you're watching live, but if you're listening after the fact, we now stream our show live on YouTube. So to be sure to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Formula One Grid Talk, and ring the bell so you are notified of future shows. We are now also available on Verbal, as well as Amazon Music, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Omni Studio, and Pocket Cast. Just search F1 Grid Talk. We now have a massive back catalogue of shows, totaling over 100 episodes now, just like Lewis Hamilton's polls, including interviews with Mario Isola from Pirelli, as well as retrospective pieces on Tiregate and Senna. If you're still stuck to what to do between shows, check out our subreddit, F1 Grid Talk, to give us suggestions for what we can do to improve the show, and perhaps subscribe to our Patreon for just $1 a week, for mics, lights, and better recording equipment for our presenters. We will be back, I believe, next Monday to preview the Monaco Grand Prix, which is back after a 1-year hiatus. I'm very, very excited after what I've seen at Formula E and the Monaco Grand Prix Historique. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you to our wonderful guests. And goodbye.
Spencer can't wave.
Yeah.
Trust me.
I didn't mute. I was looking at something else. Sorry.
So honestly, don't worry about it. It's fine. I think we got it. I was more like just hoping not to flub the lines.
Hosting this show is so brutal. I give you credit. I did it once, and that was enough. I can't do it ever again. It was so stressful because everything went off. It was Abu Dhabi last year, the race recap, and I had the monkey seat duo, and it was the three of us because I think George's computer crashed or the internet went out.
Yeah,
that was not fun.
That is not a fun task. We normally sort of do a bit of post show, so if you're there, hello.
Yeah.
Just earned a new sub apparently, according to the live chat that I haven't been looking at. But Valtteri Bottas not moving over out of Lewis Hamilton's way immediately I was surprised.
That was convenient.
I was not surprised by that at all, actually.
No,
I wasn't surprised either.
Maybe I'm just naive.
No, I think it's fine that he's doing that, but I think he also knows the writing's on the wall for him too. So it's like,
yeah, it was an extreme to whom it may concern moment.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was about to say. He's kind of showing the middle finger to Mercedes and being like, I'm not gonna bow to Lewis. I'm not gonna, be second driver. He can pass me by his own merit, which doesn't really mean anything at the end of the day because he's still gonna be passed by Hamilton. I mean,
yeah.
Well, Valtteri has to bow to Lewis. He's knighted.
I'm not sure how that works in contract negotiations with who gets over for who. To be honest, though, I will say that a long, long time ago, Lewis Hamilton. What did he say about the Hamilton Rosberg battle once during a race? It's like if he wants to come and pass me, he can pass me, but I'm not going to move over just because it suits his strategy. So I don't think Lewis can. If Lewis is going to complain about that, he hasn't, as far as I heard. But if he's going to complain about that, he's kind of on a sticky wicket there.
Well, he was able to go and do what he had to do, so it didn't matter.
It didn't affect the outcome of the race.
No. So he's slightly better than a Russian driver. In that way.
We're all better than the Russian driver, so that's
funny. You guys never say his name.
I refuse to. I'm not. Like I say, waste of hydrocarbons. Like we've got this guy, really. Like we've got this guy in the thing of Premier Motorsport, and I'm like, you're not making a good case for the whole green message either.
Yeah.
Not a fan. I remember what I was going to say about Carlos Sainz. I know, obviously, for slightly different reasons, but no one said a good thing about Hamilton's move to Mercedes before he did it.
Yeah.
Not many people have said a good move about Carlos Sainz's move, and it might be an inspired decision if Ferrari end up being very, very quick next year with the new regulations.
Yeah, I think that was he was looking forward towards 22 also, and I think it's possible that it could work out for him because he knows that McLaren is built around. I mean, in the end, Ferrari it's more versed towards Charles Leclerc, but they're willing to make two good cars, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's an excellent point, actually. Ferrari actually built two good cars now.
Yeah,
I think F1's career strategy just comes down to don't do what Alonso does. That's pretty much
exactly. Yeah, that's it.
You talking about don't get hit by a bus while you're cycling, or something else?
Don't leave for a year and then be bad.
Don't join any team that Alonso joins because you know it's going to suck. After Renault, he just couldn't join a good team. All his career decisions were horrible after that. He was so unlucky.
It's a good point because the best team he joined after Renault was probably McLaren, but for whatever reason he couldn't get on top of Lewis Hamilton, who was a rookie at the time. Let's not forget, and just couldn't do it.
GP2 engine, man.
No, I mean the first time.
Yeah, the first time. Yeah.
I mean, I would argue that the 2007 Mercedes engine wasn't amazing. It did blow up a fair bit.
Well, yeah, that was what it was known for however many years. It would just blow up, and that cost Lewis races too. I mean, it was the same thing with Kimi Räikkönen. The minute he moves to Ferrari, taking over for Schumacher, and then he ends up getting that championship. I mean, because of reliability in a lot of ways.
The thing with Alonso is I think he creates so much toxicity in the team that nobody wants to really, go out of their way for him, and I think that counts against him because he's a damn good driver. He can extract a hell of a lot out of a car, but he needs to be in control. I don't know if you saw Tomo on his channel for April Fool's issued a video where Alonso was named as the Alpine, what do you call it, team principal. And before I read the actual article and watched the video, I honestly believed it because I was like, yeah, I could see him demanding that, being a driver and team principal.
It's definitely very good. I think the problem is that he unfortunately knows how to use his platform on the radio in the worst ways for the team.
Yeah. It's like when, especially with these teams that are not, at the top end, it's going to have a greater effect. And that's why you don't really hear, I mean, when you're running 17th, they're not going to play radio anyway, but when not really hearing his radio these days, you didn't really hear his radio when he was obviously in the best car in the WEC because they were in the best car. So it's like the tension he's brought on himself, and it's a shame really because of his talent to be somebody that could say he actually beat Schumacher heads up, and to basically still only have 2 world championships and 30-something wins, which is a great career, but just a real, loss of opportunities, which were a lot based on him. I mean, he basically threw away Indianapolis too because he shit on Honda so bad.
Yeah. That's the thing. He's an extremely polarizing character. You either hate him or you absolutely love him, and I tend to fall into the former camp. I recognize that he's a very good driver and everything, but he only seems to work when the team is as kind of inflammatory as he is, and the ultimate example of a team principal that suits his style is Flavio Briatore.
I'm gonna say Flavio Briatore and him must have gotten like a house on fire, honestly.
Yeah,
he must have set a house on fire every now and again. See that happening.
No, I will say that to sort of further my the thing I was saying earlier, use it saying at the Japanese Grand Prix, GP2 engine and and all of these different very, very important places for the teams that he was at. If it hadn't gone well for Toyota, for example, you kind of think he'd have so had he retired, you'd think he'd sort of get out of the Toyota at Fuji or something and hold up a "I hate this team" banner sort of thing.
Yeah. That probably would have happened if it was they didn't have the defined advantage like they still do.
Yeah, as it
He's
happens.
the kind of guy. He's the kind of guy to do that.
That's why I really enjoy seeing Ocon beat him, because I really don't want what I think is going to happen. I think Ocon's going to lose his seat and Alonso is going to partner Gasly either next year or the year thereafter. But I really hope that it's the other way around and that Alonso loses it and Gasly comes in. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they've invested too much in Alonso to call it quits.
Yeah. Those hat sales are probably pretty great.
Yeah.
They've invested too much in Alonso's tight T-shirt addiction.
Yeah, which he designs himself. I only found out recently that Kim was his company.
Yeah, that's why.
I'm not surprised, but I didn't know.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, why is his hat's always different and it's always Kimo? I'm like, okay, yeah, it's his deal. I think he said something about that during his documentary when he was last year when he was, or it was on Prime when he was doing all the different series. He was running the Dakar and he was running WC. But
it's a shame because for all his faults, Fernando Alonso he seems to get racing in the same way that sort of Senna did, and doesn't want to be just the best at Formula One. He wants to be the best at everything.
Yeah,
maybe I'm a bit outside the maybe I'm a bit off base there, but it's just my thoughts.
No, he's shown the ability to go and run. He comes to America. It's funny when he comes to America, he's a lot more. He's not as polarizing, a lot more relaxed, and the respect is shown too for his driving ability, and he really blends in well and assimilates into teams, and he's done really well here, winning the Rolex and run well at Indy and all these things. I mean, it's not because you would assume he could do that because of how great he is, but you need to be with the right teams in the right situations to really pull it off.
No matter how you look at it, on paper, Alonso he's a great driver, but it's team dependent.
Mm-hmm.
And if his team's not behind him, then he's kind of SOL.
Yeah, that's where people want to talk about Lewis. It's like, oh well, he has not been. He's always had this car. No, he hasn't. McLaren at times was not nowhere near they're probably maybe the second or third best car.
2009, 2011.
Yeah, I mean, they were not the best. They make mistakes. They'd have lots of mechanical issues. He's won every year of his career. He's won a pole every year in his career. And I mean, granted, he probably wins 07 and you give up 08, vice versa, whatever. He still would have the way things are, he still have the 7 world championships and all these wins. So people that want to go and say it is just strictly because so then Schumacher was strictly about the car from 2000 to 2004, right? He didn't ever do anything. He had to build that team up for 5 years before they went on the run that they went on. It's all you put the perfect pieces together, then of course you're going to have what you have, but you can't go and sleep on the fact that he's been consistent. In a sense, like his consistency is like epic now with the volume of wins and poles he has now relative to before. But
I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he is able to build and maintain a team around him. I think the only person in Mercedes that really can't stand him is Bottas at the moment, and previously it was probably Rosberg.
Yeah, but and Rosberg was able to manipulate things and get it in his favor. So
and it was the same with Schumacher. He was able to build a team around him that loved him and that supported him, that would go out of their way to make sure that his strategy is always right. And that says something about the character of the driver, and I think that's what's lacking in a lot of other teams.
I think the big thing about Hamilton for me, though, is that it must be frustrating, particularly if you're a teammate, but especially if you're going against him, for the fact that Lewis Hamilton doesn't do things the way that of normal, like he's got the sort of the X factor that means he doesn't do the sim testing so much. He doesn't, he said he just like 20 laps a year. He, jets off around the world, does things completely differently and completely in a way that doesn't suit what not in the Schumacher way, which was, pound round fear runner. Obviously you can't do that now, but doesn't do all this sort of thing and has the social life that he wants to chase, and yet still, because he's that good, jumps in a car on a Friday to a Sunday, and has 99% of the time an amazing weekend.
And even when he makes a mistake, he's able to somehow recover and make something of it, which basically nobody else can do.
Exactly, like Imola this year, Monza
Yeah.
last year. It's just crazy. Like, I don't know how somebody can just do that.
Yeah.
Be Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Get back to me in like a year, and then we'll talk.
Yeah.
We've sort of waxed lyrical about Lewis Hamilton for 15 minutes. I'm gonna have to close down the show because I need to sort of get some food and things. But thank you guys for coming on. If you're still watching the live,
thank you.
Yeah, if you're still watching live, I don't know if anyone is, but thank you for watching. We're going to close the show out here. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
See ya.